We will call this meeting to order. We do have a quorum. We'll rise and do the pledge. Look for a motion to approve the agenda as presented. So moved. Second. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That will take us to patron comments. Did we have a list? Okay. Any school district patron may present information to the board at this time. Presentations will be limited to no more than 5 minutes. The board will not take action on any issue not included on the published agenda. However, all comments will be taken into consideration by the Board of Education. Patrons are requested not to discuss individual faculty, staff, or students. Patrons are reminded that this is a public forum and comments relative to individuals could result in litigation. However, any patron may request to meet with the Board of in executive session. No response will be given by the board at this time. Did anyone want to speak tonight? All right. That takes us to reports. We'll start with the superintendent's report.
Yeah, we have a few highlights for you this month. First of all, at the top, you'll see that we've got some new data reporting in here, and the thought is, just based on the discussions that we've had at previous meetings, that if we can get a snapshot of some progress things, that the numbers that the board really wants to keep an eye on. And so what we've added at the top is year-to-date operating revenues, and then it has 2 years history prior to now. It's listed 2025. That's our fiscal year is 2025, and then year-to-date operating expenses. This is sorry, I thought I was going to say that on here, but this is operating. Oh, it does say operating in the title. Okay, I was hoping it would be in there somewhere. So year-to-date operating expenses. And then the more detailed financial report that we started using last year, the thought is we would still bring that level of detail periodically back to the board, but that a month over month, maybe this would be a good overview for you. And then we've also cleaned up our health premiums overages table there. So you could see 3 years history prior to this year, with in blue our health premium overages, which is expected that we're going to have some overage payments because we are self-insured. And so you see 3 years worth of overage payments, and then you see that for year to date for fiscal year 25, we have budgeted $800,000 this year, which is almost half of what last year's unusually high overage payments were. And then there's a zero next to it to show that we've not actually made any overage payments yet in the current school year. So that is something that was of particular concern last year, and so we thought this would be a quick way to make sure that the board has eyes on this on a monthly basis. And then we also want to be sure that we're tracking student attendance month over month, and so the thought is once we have a month's worth of data, we'll bring the data back and a more specific way of reporting the data. So these numbers are all still sample numbers. And then you see my initial attempt to put a red line across where 90% will show, and I'll learn how to use this tool before we're reporting with real numbers, and that way we can kind of see, we'll have a goal line in there too as a benchmark for you. Any questions on that or feedback or ideas before we go on to a couple other highlights?
I like it. I like the concept.
Okay, thank you. Just, this is, we're in the heart of back to school time. It's an exciting time. It's really a fun part of this work is gearing up for the start of a school year. Not everybody has this in their professional cycle the way that educators do, so it is kind of a fun thing. And back to school events are underway. In fact, there are families in schools tonight. They've been meeting with teachers, and kids are excited, and it's really been going well. And operationally, behind the scenes, our teams have been working really hard to prepare the schools and the classrooms and make sure everything's cleaned up and looking good. And they're doing very well, doing very well. There will be some operations type projects that carry on or really pick up in earnest once school year is underway. But for the first day of school, we really do try to get everything looking good. We have an updated calendar of events down below, and I want to remind you that we have our convocation ceremony tomorrow morning at 8:30 at the high school. Board is invited to attend if you are available. We have a spot for you in the front row. We will probably, what would we estimate? Like, the doors open at 8. The presentation starts at 8:30. Is this like between 9:30 and 10 o'clock? So we're targeting an hour. When they hand Dr. Welly the microphone, you never know what's going to happen next. But it's entertaining. We will recognize our years of service recipients. We'll recognize our Teacher of the Year, Support Staff of the Year. I'll say a few things, and then we'll send everybody out for cinnamon rolls and coffee. And there's a vendor fair. We have a lot of vendors that would really like to have access to our teachers throughout the course of the school year. And so we've come up with this vendor fair concept that we say, no, we don't want you camping out at our school during the lunch period in October, but we'll give you a slot and the teachers will make their rounds to you before school starts. So it's kind of been turned into a neat tradition. So any questions at all, either on the highlights or any other aspect of our superintendent's report? There's also included here a construction update, which I will tell you, those photos were submitted last week, and we've been at the high school every day since then, and the high school is looking fantastic, and there's a lot of progress even since these pictures were submitted. I'll ask the question first, though. Dr. Gooch, is there any aspect of back to school on our high school construction project is there anything that you've learned today that we're worried about for the first day of school?
No, nothing that's going to hinder anything on the first day of school, no.
Since the last time the board met, we went back, and just from a quality assurance standpoint, we weren't fully pleased with, there's an eagle head emblem on the gym floor in the new field house. We didn't think there was enough contrast. I think a lot of people were going to look at it and go, what are you trying to do here? And we made the decision, go ahead and fix it, get it darker, get it the way it was intended. And we were willing to sacrifice not having access to that gym the first week or two of school. But now that it is done, I mean, they put all hands on deck, and our kids are going to be on it the first day of school. So they still were able to pull this off for us.
Is that done? Still working on it.
I think the floor is done. They just want it to sit for a few days. Is that right, Dr. Gooch?
Yeah, so the new stain and the final coat is of the sealer and everything. They are finished. It's been buffed out. They'd like to have a few days for it to fully set up. So we are in that 7-day window right now where they have the new field house shut down. You can see it through the windows. It looks fantastic. It's just right now they preferred to have no feet on it. The one thing that is we were fortunate about in this is it was just the actual basketball, volleyball court that was the part that needed anything redone on it, and so the area where the bleachers and the parts around the floor didn't need anything else. So thankfully, because that takes quite a bit more time for the cure for it to happen, so this was really able to get done relatively quick. We were very, very pleased that Newkirk Novak and Acme Floor both came through and brought everybody together, and we were able to get it even sooner than the initial discussion. So this is great. I'm excited for our students and our community to see this.
When will the board be invited to go tour as a group?
If you have an opportunity to come tomorrow morning, we could walk you through as much as you'd like to see, with the exception of the floor.
Sure.
Other than that, anytime you would like, honestly, because it's all but the floor is ready to go.
We could do even as soon as September, we could set a time even an hour ahead of this meeting for the workshop or the business meeting itself. We could start over there, or maybe an hour and 15 minutes, and do a tour over there, and then still come over and have our meeting if you'd like. So
Sure.
throw that out.
we can work through that. Just looking through the report, obviously with being the first part of school with school not started yet, we just have some general updates from all the buildings, but with ECC specifically, and I don't know if anybody will be able to answer it, but with the 37 families on the wait list for parents as teachers, and then the 6 evaluations in progress because they don't do that stuff over the summer, how quickly will they work through those?
If it's parents as teachers wait list, that's all going to get processed very quickly, because we've added a third person. So, and they are starting for their early childhood program. They're starting with a record high number of kids for the first day of school. So, but yeah, that was the whole point in hiring a third person, was they're in now, and so now they're getting started. So by next month, we should see that number hopefully zeroed out.
And then with the evaluations of students or potential students?
The Early Childhood Center, they schedule when somebody comes in and says, I'd like to get my child screened, they'll screen the child, but then they time the evaluation around the time of the child's 3rd birthday. So sometimes something will get on a wait list, and it'll stay on the wait list until it gets closer to the child's birthday. But I don't think there's a concern. I'm not hearing a concern from the principal there about any kind of backlog from that standpoint.
Okay. Anyone else? Questions on the superintendent's report?
I have a question, just because it was our 2nd year doing the Bright Futures Back to School Fair, and it said that we had the number in the participation quadrupled from last year. So I know we started small, and getting people to attend those things is tough, but I just wondered what the number was, like how many people we had there.
50, but I don't know the exact number.
Good. Yeah,
I'd say 50 to 72.
that's exciting. Yeah, good deal.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's a great thing to have happen for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
They made a couple changes, and it was a win, and next year they're going to change very little.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So that will take us to the district assessment plan.
Yeah, each year at this time, we bring to the board all of our intended assessments for the year, kind of a description, what we hope, what the purpose of the assessments are. Just want to get that in front of you and just give you an opportunity to ask any questions.
With the amount of assessments that's required by the state, does the spring look any better for our poor 5th graders? Like, that's just a brutal time. And I know last year was our first time doing all of them. I know no one wants to go through that again, so I don't know.
So, I mean, we've made the things that we have control over, we've made
Right.
conscious decisions to cut out the MAP practice test. So of course, we are eligible to allow students to practice the MAP before they actually take the MAP. So we've cut out anything that is optional at this point. And so everything that they were assessed on is mandated at this point.
It's a brutal time of year.
Mm-hmm.
I recall a policy around this, but I can't remember the specifics. Do we have to approve this list?
I do believe, I want to check.
So at the top of this, it says Grand Valley Board Policy IL.
Yeah.
But do we have to approve that? I haven't looked up IL. Do we have to approve this
think-
list?
In my head, I was thinking this would come back as a consent agenda item next month.
Okay.
But I'd double check that.
And then it'll be submitted as part of one of our many plans that gets submitted for our MSIP cycle review for this year.
Okay. So once we approve the list, we can't add anything to the list without a board amendment, correct? I remember a bunch of discussion around this, I'm sorry, but I can't remember the specifics.
I can look specifically into that provision.
Okay, thank you.
So yeah, we'll follow up just as far as the policy requirement, and then if we can just put it through consent agenda if there's no additional comments
Yeah, I have no concerns. I just want to make sure we're following
Yeah,
policy.
and that we're clear on what happens if we add an assessment after the fact.
Okay. Any other questions or comments about the assessments? All right. That will take us to unfinished business, the CSIP annual priorities for 2024-2025.
Yeah, we bring this document back to the board again, this time with some revisions. I have you scroll ahead. I mean, the first part is the introductory. You know, we're always focused on our vision and our motto and our 6 core beliefs. And then our big rocks just kind of outlines, since the winter of 2021, what we said we were going to do and who we plan to be 5 years out. And really the annual priorities really start in earnest on page 3. So this is organized by objectives from the CSIP, and then we have a handful of priorities here. So I'm going to give kind of a quick overview of the document, and then we'll open it up, and you're certainly welcome to interrupt me, but we're also going to take time to ask any follow-up questions. So our first priority is to implement our academic multi-tier system of supports, or MTSS, grades K through 8. And this would be tiers 2 and 3. These are 3-tiered systems. Tier 1 is general all class instruction. Tier 2 interventions mean that the regular core instruction or even the minor adjustments that a teacher would make for any student is not enough. So we're going to devote special time and focused interventions for students on Tier 2. And then after so many weeks of that and a lack of growth, then that student might be eligible for a Tier 3 intervention, which is a more intensive intervention. So what we're saying is that we're going to focus really our PD on tiers 2 and 3 to implement those with fidelity, grades K through 8. And then we have 4 measures that we're going to accomplish by May. Provide that professional development, number 1, an MTSS with fidelity 3 times a year. We're going to make sure for number 2 that we're going to provide additional cohorts of training for teachers in the letters training or the Orton-Gillingham training. And the goal is to have all of our kindergarten through 5th grade teachers trained in letters and or Orton-Gillingham. Number 3, reading success plans. This was new last year and it was fully implemented, but this remains a priority not only for us but for the state. And so we're going to continue to, by putting attention on it, having it a measure here, it means that we're reporting back to the board on a quarterly basis on something that's already fully implemented, but the data from it is still important. And then measure number 4, continue to track and assess reading intervention progress to reduce the number of students who are at risk in reading, which really is the ultimate measure. That's the point. Priority number 2 is to complete a thorough curriculum audit and develop a 3-year plan for providing viable curriculum across all content areas, especially in areas that haven't been revised in the previous 3 years. So we'll do the audit and we'll continue to engage the community in that process. What this will lead to is some of the other goals we've talked about how we provide grading and feedback to students and report that to families, which we can still make gains on those efforts, but really once we are fully implemented on curriculum in every course, it makes it a lot easier for us to focus across the board on grading and feedback. Priority number 3 is on the next page. We're going to implement and evaluate our Tier 1 character education resources. We piloted programs in all of our schools last year, and this year they have all reached consensus so that all elementary schools are doing the same program, both middle schools are doing the same program, and the high schools also implementing character ed. So this will be a K-12 initiative this year that we're pretty excited to help out with. And in addition to being funded by general revenue, this one also happens to be funded by the Children's Services Fund of Jackson County. Priority number 4 is to deliver professional development to understand the systematic approach for Tier 2 behavior supports in K-8. So this is the behavior side of the MTSS system. And so we're going to be diving deep into that and tracking our progress on that. Priority number 5 is to develop a long-range facilities plan, reviewing the enrollment numbers, our growth history, programming needs at all schools. And I will say we'll engage the facilities planning committee on this, and they met earlier this week with an update from the architects. So We anticipate our demography study sometime in October. And so the demography information will also be shared with the architects. All of this will come back to the board for presentation. And through the course of the year, we'll develop a long-range facilities plan. And really what this is going to do for us, it's going to give us the discussions that are part of that are going to give us a vision for what are we going to do next. And so I'll just remind you of some of the big rocks that are on that. Outdoor athletic facilities to support our middle schools, additional elementary classrooms, additional early childhood classrooms, and then additional classroom space for elementary and early childhood programming that is not necessarily classroom space. So it would be maybe special needs programming space. So mapping out when and what and how, that'll all be part of that plan. And then priority number 6 is to prioritize and implement our safety plan for needed improvement. And the board has spent some time, you've seen all the things that are on that list. And you know, for example, there was a group in the last few days that went around, inspected all of our buildings, took window measurements, door measurements, and they're coming back with a plan because we know that we're going to be evaluating our current window film situation, and then if there's other changes that need to happen there, we'll be coming back with a recommendation on that. We're also going to be aligning. We have multiple safety and crisis and trauma response plans. We're going to do our best to work to integrate those. And we're going to get as much done this year as we can. Sometimes you dive into those and you realize how many rabbit holes you have, but with putting it on paper and being focused about it, it's going to really force us to get all those groups together. And we're also going to team up with MSBA's EOP program, and that's a platform that makes that has a lot of promise and could help us in the classroom, not just in our emergency plan, but they're kind of part of their dream list as a state is providing communication tools or communication app for teachers, and we're certainly going to track progress on that as well. Those are our 6 priorities as they are right now, and we would open that up for any questions or suggestions.
So I made a comment at some point in the past, I don't remember which meeting it was, but with regard to priority number 1, it is critical that we support those that are struggling, but I think it's also our motto, every student, every day. What about those that aren't struggling? What are we doing to challenge those kiddos, and should that be part of our strategy in our document here?
So to me, that is priority 2, which is focusing on a viable curriculum. We have a lot of content areas without board-approved curriculum currently, and making sure that teachers are properly trained in writing curriculum and able to implement that curriculum with fidelity and teach to the level of rigor as intended by the state, and push and challenge kids is a strong passion of ours in getting that curriculum written. So I definitely think we have it's going to be a lofty goal to do it in 3 years, but I think it is essential to making sure that students are taught what's intended, and then there's such a deep level of understanding that they can push kids beyond that.
So it might be helpful somewhere in the course of this school year. We're going to be talking curriculum, and it might be helpful for us to revisit this topic when we bring that next round of curriculum back and kind of talk about how those sorts of issues are built into the mix.
Yeah, for sure. For example, we had K-5 reading come to curriculum camp this summer. Not quite done, but they got a good way through it. They've got enough to live through, but there's still writing, there's still math, social studies, there's science, there's so many other aspects. It's a lot that elementary teachers have to teach, just for one example, but I know that they feel much more confident and ready having a curriculum that they've all worked together and had time to study and unwrap the standards and really dig in. It builds confidence as a teacher, and I look forward to that implementation this year, and then we'll bring that back and continue working on that throughout the year. So whatever time and money allows, we will move it at whatever pace that we can.
Thank you.
Anyone else on the priorities, questions, comments? one I had was on priority number one, that number two, the additional cohorts of letters and Orton Gillingham training in K through 5. What I heard was that we'll have some teachers with one, some teachers with another. Is there any benefit to having all of the teachers have both?
I mean, there's certainly a benefit. I don't know if it's cost effective. We do have some that do have both, mainly because of their particular position. And I think that'll be something to evaluate once everyone has one or the other. I think one of the things we'll evaluate is what's our greater rate of return really? Should we, because our plan right now would be to spread this into some middle and high, maybe not every teacher, but enough that could help. We'll run into issues with move-in students that need intensive levels of support that haven't been with us along the way and just need more assistance. So making sure we have enough trained personnel in every building is really something I'm passionate about. But we do have people who are trained in both, and it's like, can you be overtrained? No, it's always a great reminder. It always makes you, learn better the more frequently you hear about it and the more you do. But I mean, like I said, it's going to be a cost evaluation, I think, at some point.
I imagine there will, right now the push is to get everybody something.
Mhm.
And once we've achieved that, then there'll be a management system. And so it could very well be that we continue to do both and offer both and promote
Okay.
both systems.
I think part of the, I guess, future questions for me is with letters training. The people who provide letters training come from the state. It's funding provided by the state through our KCR PDC. It's a year by year whether they're going to continue to fund that. So what could I didn't even know if it would be funded this year, and it is, yay, because it's a 2-year program, so we have people in year 2. But I have leaned a little heavier towards Orton Gillingham because that's a sure thing, and I know they have access to it. So it's another question mark year over year whether the state will continue to pay for that. So
The good news about embracing Orton Gillingham training is that's the training our parents know and understand. And when they hear that their child's teacher is getting trained in it, they feel that they know what that means, or at least they're assured that they've heard of it before. So
Right.
it's a pretty popular system.
All right. Anything additional? All right. And we don't have to do any action item on this. This is just going to continue to come back for discussion. Will we bring that back at the September board meeting, or will we just see
Yeah,
what?
Yeah, probably, we'll bring it back as an action item in the September board meeting.
All right. That will take us to new business. We'll need to approve the extra duty positions and stipends. This one, the first one that we're gonna go over is for Tessa Williams' extra duty position. Do I have a motion to approve the extra duty position and stipend for Tessa Williams as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All right. We'll do this as a roll call so you can abstain. All right. Ms. Schwartz?
Yes.
Mr. Scully? Yes. Mr. English?
Yes.
Dr. Taylor? Mr. Williams?
Abstain.
Mr. Pollard?
Yeah.
And I'm a yes. The next item of business will be the extra duty stipend, or extra duty positions / stipends for the rest of the district positions. Do I have a motion to approve the remaining list of extra duty, district extra duty positions and stipends as presented?
So moved?
Second?
All right, got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on these items?
I do wish to point out that there were some updates in this list since you first saw your packet on Friday. So the elementary positions have all been updated just in the last couple of days.
As far as pay scale?
Well, mostly around the names of the people who were,
Okay.
yeah, it took,
The amount is the same? roughly?
I think the amounts had already been adjusted.
Okay.
What we needed when when the schools were back was who's your yearbook sponsor this year and those kinds of things. And that was not updated on the first round, but I can't say for sure that none of these dollar amounts changed today. I think they had already changed. I think they'd already been adjusted for the year.
Only question I had was at the bottom, those that don't have a name by them, are those that we're still trying to fill, or,
Correct.
and
Those are
they
still
don't
posted.
necessarily have to be filled, or we're working hard to try to get
Well,
those filled? Or-
yes, we have those posted, and as those seasons approach, then a lot of times the head coaches will help recruit among their teaching colleagues to try to get somebody to help out as assistant coaches in those areas.
Okay, and once we approve the list, the list is okay, we won't have to bring it back.
Correct.
It just gives the staff the room to fill those spots as well.
Yes.
Well, just for clarification, at the bottom, there are a few that don't have an amount. I'm okay that they don't have a name, but they don't have an amount. So we wouldn't be approving those, right?
Correct. You're not authorizing any payment on those.
So that would come back.
Yeah, so we would have to bring that back. Because that would be like any other employment contract.
All right. We have a motion and we've had, and a second. All in favor of approving the stipends, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That'll take us to adding 2 elementary teacher full-time positions. Do I have a motion to approve the addition of 2 elementary teacher FTEs for the 2024-2025 school year?
So move.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion on these items?
Is there anything, I know that this is driven by registration, and we would love to not have to do this in the 11th hour. Is there anything that we can predict to not be in this predicament? I mean, I know that you hassle us to get registered, and I don't know how else to get people to do their part. But any thoughts on that with the late ad?
Yeah, a few years ago, when we could anticipate a certain growth pattern in the elementary level, then we would actually beef up our hiring and our budgeting in the spring for the following year. But our enrollment has been flat for many years at the elementary level. So these positions in particular, there's actually 3 changes. It's just that we're only hiring 2 new people. There was a 3rd teacher that we actually reassigned them buildings at the 11th hour, and everybody knew that was a possibility in the spring, because Prairie Branch was ending the school year with 5 sections at kindergarten, but their enrollment their spring enrollment really didn't justify the 5. But we figured we're going to need that position somewhere, but we won't know until the fall exactly where. So that kind of played out pretty well. But the other thing that happens is, even though we haven't grown in several years at the elementary level, we do push the numbers pretty close in certain places. Mm-hmm. And so, but until they actually arrive or tell us that they're coming, we don't make the move. So in both of these cases, we just feel really good about having identified exceptional people to fill these 2 positions. And 2 or 3 years ago, that would have not happened. So we're okay. It's not ideal. But if the trend picks up again, that we show that we're growing year over year, then we will probably just add these positions in the springtime for the following year, with specific assignments to be determined.
Are these upper level elementary, lower level, or are we seeing an increase in our enrollment at the lower levels, and then can anticipate that in the upper levels as it goes along? Or
Our kindergarten numbers are still just below 300. So once we're underway, we'll be able to report back. But just because we are adding these two positions doesn't necessarily mean that enrollments are up this year. It just means we had two places where we were already pushing the threshold, and 7 more kids enrolled at that grade level at that school. And if we didn't make this move, we were going to have 25 in a class in first grade, for example. So the answer is coming to your question, but at this point, it'd be too soon for me to say that we are growing again at the elementary, or we're growing at K1 and we've got a bubble. We all predict that there's going to be a new bubble of growth that comes. So yes, every year we're just wondering, is this the year? And we're going to still wait and find out if this is the year.
And like you had mentioned, you were able to identify and acquire the 2 staff members, quality staff members. Will they need additional assistance getting up to speed with the district, being that it's such a shorter time frame that they've had?
They will, and they are probably overwhelmed with support right now from everybody lending a hand. But yes, we'll need to fast track. One of them is a teacher who left for a few years to focus on her family, and she is back. And the other one is related to an instructional coach in our district, so knows firsthand how to get a lot of extra support. So we got really lucky on this one for these 2 positions.
Okay. Any additional questions or comments? All right. All in favor of approving the 2 FTEs, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. That will take us to the Curriculum Review Committee.
Yes, on this particular community engagement committee, the names of the community representatives come to the board ahead of their work. So it's not an action item tonight, but this would come back as an action item in September.
All right, any questions on the review committee? Are the majority, if not all of these, returning members to this committee?
Yes, many of them are returning, but there's a few new names on here as well.
Okay.
And I think the list in general is a little bit shorter than it was last year. So we had some who returned, some who didn't return, and then we had a couple of new faces.
Mostly, yeah, I would agree. We did have more of our members return, but they've signed up for counseling, or I think they wanted to do a different engagement group, which I don't blame them, you know. So this was a new one last year, so it was flashy. Now we're year 2, you know, you just get fewer, but it's a strong group, and they seem really passionate and excited about it, so I think it'll be good.
Just based on the policy itself, do we see any any need, or could we get any benefit from having any of our district teachers, 1 or 2, part of that group?
Go ahead.
I mean, this group will be much bigger than this because whatever curriculum is brought that night, which we've been bringing anywhere from 10 to 12 curriculum to each review committee evening, the teachers who wrote the curriculum come along and present the curriculum. So where you may have a group of 3 community members, you may have 6 to 8 teachers presenting. So they're heavily involved. They're just sharing their passion and the curriculum they've written with our community members and answering any questions and getting feedback.
Okay. Right. Anything else? All right. And that will come back in September. Or do we have to approve that list?
You will have to approve
Okay,
it, but
so
it'll come back in September as an
We'll bring
action
that
item.
back in September. All right. That will take us to the MSBA Fall Regional Meeting on September 4th in Platte County.
Yeah, if any, and you've maybe seen this in your emails from MSBA, if any board members are interested, just let Mrs. Clappin know, and she'll mark you down and get you RSVP'd. I think you have another week or 2. I think it's maybe I don't think there's really a firm deadline on this. They just want to know ahead of time that you're coming because there's a food involved.
Yeah, I had looked at the email, and for whatever reason, our region wasn't shown with a date in their email,
That's really strange.
but now we know what it is. All right. Any questions on the regional meeting? All right. That takes us to board policies. So these are local review 2024B policies. This is the first reading for all these local policies in sections C and D. Does anybody today have any questions or comments on this group of policies?
I don't have a question on this group of policies. I was wondering though, we had talked about in our workshop last time with the format we did and what we were doing. And so I obviously misunderstood, but I thought in the workshops, we were going to be focusing a little bit more on the policies and looking at those. And so
So,
is this?
so
a
this is,
first look
yeah, this will
and
be
then
the first
workshop
look. We'll
second
bring
look?
those back at the workshop to do the deeper dive. Everybody will have them introduced tonight, just to be able to have that time between now and the workshop to
read
to
Okay.
go over them. And then
And-
we'll do the same thing as we did the last workshop. We'll dive into them.
Go through, and then essentially after workshop, these would be put in consent agenda because we'd gotten them to a place that we're okay with.
Unless we needed additional
Further.
work, correct?
Okay,
Yes.
gotcha.
So is it appropriate then to ask a question now, or should I save it?
You,
For the
if
workshop.
you have any questions, we can ask them now.
One very brief question.
Yep.
On the superintendent contract policy. It's very short. There's a list of things that should be in the contract. I don't recall all of those things being in the superintendent's contract, so I just wanted to verify that those are all listed. With, like vacation time, is that in
Mhm.
your contract listed?
I believe I will check to see if it lists the actual number of days, but it might say per policy.
Okay.
That the superintendent will be issued vacation time consistent with district policy. That way I'm treated the same way as any other 12-month employee.
Okay,
But I can verify which way it's worded, but
Okay.
I know it's addressed in there.
perfect, thank you.
Yep, and we can talk about that at the workshop too.
And then I do have one more general question, because on these, the policies, because I didn't see any changes, are these all new from recommendation of MSBA or?
So these are gonna be just trying to get all of our
sure
policies
put
up
eyes on it.
for, yeah,
Okay.
reviewed as we go through. So this is just the next batch of those local policies
That we,
that we'll try and get the reviewed stamp on so that we can continue to go through them.
Yeah, what this list has in common is that it's been at least since 2014, since the board has put eyes on them to review to make sure that they're still relevant. And the C section policies are all general school administration, and the D section policies are all fiscal management.
Got it.
And I've already done a preview, just a look ahead to section E, which is support services. That list alone has 16, I think it was 16 policies, 12 to 16 policies that are 2014 or sooner. So once we process these through and we move on to the next one, it'll just be E policies, because that'll keep us plenty busy for the next wave. And it was either yesterday or today, I got an email from MSBA giving us a heads up that they're getting ready to release the next round of MSB-related policy recommendations, presumably based on changes to the law that happened in the last year. So depending on when they release those, I'll share that with the president, and then we can make a decision about, because we still have last month's policies that we're going to talk about on the workshop as well. So we'll figure that out. But one way or another, we know that this is the next round of policies that we're going to look at.
Yeah. And just as a clarifier for the board and anyone watching, all the policies that we had discussed not necessarily all of the policies that we discussed at the workshop were approved in the consent agenda. The ones that had some additional rework and some major work done to them, we'll rediscuss those at the workshop.
And after this next workshop, any of these policies that are listed that the board decides we don't need to do anything further to them, they are still going to get a last reviewed stamp of 2024. So it kind of captures that for posterity.
Memorializes it.
Yep.
All right. Any additional comments on these? All right. That will take us to the executive session portion of our meeting. Thanks.
I make a motion to adjourn and go into executive session as authorized by the provisions of section 610.021, numbers 1, 2, 3, and 13 of the revised statutes of Missouri, seconded. Do I gotta get a second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All in favor of going into executive session, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. That will bring our meeting to adjournment. Thank you for coming.